What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and I'm still at TIFF 2019, and I'm here to let you know that Ford v Ferrari is no perfect movie. And it centers around an engineer named Carroll Shelby, played by Matt Damon, and a race car driver named Ken Miles, played by Christian Bale, who in 1966 came up with the Ford GT40, a race car that was determined to compete with Ferrari in the 1966 Le Mans 24-hour race. I was excited to see this movie just because of the talent behind the camera. You got James Mangold directing it, you got Marco Beltrami, who's an excellent composer, and on top of that, I don't think I've ever seen Matt Damon and Christian Bale in a movie together. And this is the first time in a while that I've seen Christian Bale use his natural voice. How often do you get that? And like I said in my TIFF anticipation video, sports movies have this really good way of giving us underdog stories, characters that we want to root for but have a lot of obstacles in the way of their success. And you get a lot of that in this movie. Because not only do the members of Ford Motor compete with Ferrari in terms of coming up with a better car, let alone a racing car, there's a lot of competition in between Ford, how the higher ups have a lot of competition with lower class citizens because they may be superior than them in terms of knowledge, in terms of building cars, in terms of just appearing to look better in public than some guy in a fancy suit. And you get a lot of that, especially in Christian Bale's arc, who gives one of the best performances I've ever seen in his career. Just the fact that he, like I said before, he gets to use his natural voice, which is something you don't really see him do very often. But on top of that, he's just an interesting character because of what a brave man Ken Miles was. He wasn't afraid to stand up to people higher than them if he felt, or at least he knew, that they were wrong and he knew something that they didn't. But most importantly, he doesn't act this way to be a complete show off. He does it out of a legitimate love for his craft. He loves engineering and designing cars. He has a great amount of respect for drivers, for engineers who know what they're doing. And it's the reason Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby actually stands up for him, because he knows for a fact that Miles does what he does not to be a dick, but to be a legitimately professional race car driver. And I gotta say, Matt Damon was really good in this one as well. He doesn't have as much meat in terms of backstory or personal life in regards to Ken Miles, but we do get the first 5 minutes exclusively devoted to him in order to establish what kind of person he was in the profession that he had. And on top of that, he and Bale had such good chemistry just based through their interactions. You get the sense that the two of them have had a long history, that the two of them have clashed over the things that they respect each other for. There's so many times where Damon has to say to Bale, I got overruled on something, I can't do what I want to do, which is let you do this exact thing. And Bale usually gives him this cold but understanding look and really doesn't trash talk him for it that much because he knows for a fact that's what the business is like. And a side note, I just gotta say, as a Canadian, it's great for us to have a movie where we get to root against a fat, greedy slob named Ford. Dick. Okay, so on the surface, you have a good story, you have good characters, and you have very interesting themes about not just competitions between rival companies, but competitions within the companies. How about the thing that most casual audiences are going to care about most, the racing sequences? The race car sequences are fucking awesome. James Mangold did such a good job at portraying them as swiftly and fluidly as possible. There's absolutely no shaky cam whatsoever, there's no quick cutting, no Fast and Furious stuff where they swapped it out for CGI cars. When a stunt is done in this movie, it is really done and it looks impactful, just like you would see in any other NASCAR, Formula One, or any kind of race like that. You genuinely believe that these actors are the ones driving in the cars. In fact, there are some shots where it's painfully obvious that that was the only way they could have done it. And another thing that I really respect, and a thing that I wish more sports car movies would do more often, is that some sequences feature a lot of POV shots of the car as they're going through the tracks, which is amazing because it really gets to feel the intensity, you get to feel the atmosphere of the location, you feel like you're kind of boxed in, but there's just enough space to pass by another driver. All those small little details are what make each sequence a ton of fun to watch. My only issue is that sometimes the pacing does feel a little bit odd. I had no idea going in that this movie was going to be 2.5 hours, and I don't really mind that. I mean, there were a lot of smaller details that don't really impact the film that needed to be in there. Like, for example, Ken Miles' relationship with his son, who was played very well by Noah Jupe, another actor who you don't get to see with their usual accent. I'm just noticing this now. But yeah, there are a lot of scenes featuring Ken Miles and his wife and son, and some of those moments, especially between father and son, are really effective. But there are a couple scenes featuring him and his wife arguing about the state that they're in financially, because of course that was a big thing in the 60s, and it's not that those scenes were bad or unnecessary, but I felt like you could have done with only one or two of them as opposed to almost maybe every 20 minutes throwing in a scene just like that. And because even then there are still some scenes that drag when something big or impactful happens completely out of nowhere, because you're in professional racing and even when you're test driving something, shit can hit the fan really quickly. There are some moments, some really impactful moments that you don't really get to feel it just because it does come out of nowhere. I understand that it's that kind of profession, but at the same time, there are some filmmaking techniques like slow motion or establishing shots where you can hint that something wrong's going to happen. But whenever there's an impactful moment, usually the only way to slow it down or make you feel it is through narration, which I wouldn't mind, but they reuse the same narration. One more issue, I didn't think they gave John Bernthal enough to do. It's not that he's necessarily bad in it. He gives a usual good performance, but in terms of depth, in terms of backstory, in terms of characterization, he's got absolutely nothing. And there are a couple big moments that he should have that it's not that they were bad, it's just they could have been a hell of a lot better. I was sitting there going, okay, that was an interesting scene, but I felt like those moments I should have been leaning in going, damn. Outside of that, Ford v Ferrari was a great movie to see at TIFF. The car sequences were amazing. It has a really good story about competition underneath the surface. The performances are all really good. Christian Bale is my choice for Best Actor already. And a side note to the cinematography and the score for really making you feel the intensity during the race car moments. And for all those reasons, I'm going to give Ford v Ferrari a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. Look forward to more TIFF reviews. My next one will probably be for Edward Norton's Motherless Brooklyn. Be sure to stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, check out my other reviews at noperfectmovie.com. And once again, thank you all very much for watching. Take care.